say honored to be here because I am, but I'm also like not really nervous to be up here, but nervous to give the word. First of all, I want to say thank you to my pastors and really everybody who has just come here and been even the smallest part of just this walk with me and encouraged me even one time or gave me a smile or just pour into me in even the smallest bit. And I really, really, this is nothing to be taken lightly. That was like the where the nervousness was coming from. It's like, God, I ain't trying to lead your people astray. I'm not trying to tell them nothing that did not come from you. So I was just kind of scared about that, but it's all good. As I was preparing for today, I felt God was, talking to me, and He was giving me a little bit about a month ago. And as I got closer and closer, I'm like, God, this ain't enough. Like, I don't really have a title, and I don't really have a conclusion. I don't really have all these things. And y'all know that meme is like, make it enough. That's kind of how it was. And so I'm like, I'm gonna make it enough. I'm gonna go up there and I'm gonna give God what He gave me. And as I was preparing, I talked to a few people. They all gave me the same advice, which was, make it personal, make it your own. Yours does not have to. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's. It doesn't have to sound like anybody else's. And I'm like, you are absolutely right. And God had given me, like I said a month ago, the story of Joshua. And I can relate to that because Joshua didn't really, he was different. He was different. So he was born during the time, and y'all, this how the enemy works, y'all. I left my laptop at home with my notes on it. Thankfully, it's on my phone too, so I'm good on that. But a little just information about Joshua is he was born into slavery through under Egypt, which we know that was kind of Moses. Moses' assignment was to deliver the people, take them out of Egypt. And so, um, while they were on this little journey under the leadership of Moses, uh, sorry, y'all. So while they were under that, we know that the story of 12 men being sent to go check out this land. They came back, and of the 12 men, they were all kind of scared. Mind you, this is promised land that God has already said is yours. This is promised land that they knew was theirs, but they were too scared of what it would look like to get there, or what it could possibly look like to get there. To have faith that God gave me this. God gave me this, so I'm gonna walk in it. So of them, it was Caleb as well as Joshua who gave good reports. And I love that because it said that, they carried a different spirit. And I was thinking like, well, I always been a little different myself. Maybe I'm like Joshua. I can relate to that because some things that I didn't really realize, were essentially a setup when I was smaller, and how I didn't really like to do the same things, or I didn't really, want the same things or want the same desires. I'm like, that is relatable. I can do that. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Um, so as Joshua, because of Joshua's faith and as well as Caleb's, when the Israelites were punished, as far as being in the wilderness for 40 years, everybody over 20 had to die, and that excluded Joshua and Caleb. Throughout this time, Joshua was under the leadership of Moses, and close to his death, it says that he is the successor of Moses. And to be a successor, it means that it's the one to come after. And I think about, um, if you're coming after, something has to end for you to get the power or the authority or the same gifting that the first one had. So I in Deuteronomy 34:9, it says he was full of the Spirit and he was wise because Moses laid hands on him. And I think about when, every 4 or 8 years, when a new president is elected, they have a peaceful transfer of power, which in that tells everything that the first person had, everything, all the power that our first president or the past president has is now being moved to the next. So it's all connected. It's all the same. So, yeah, that's just a little preface. Don't everybody doesn't know it, and that's fine. I have a lot of scripture, and I was kind of like, Don't nobody really do it like that, and it's okay because it ain't y'all's, it's mine. So, yeah, we're gonna start in Joshua chapter 1. We're gonna be there for a long time, so y'all just sit tight. So, it says, after the death of Moses, the Lord's servant, the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' assistant. He said, Moses, my servant, is dead. Therefore, the time has come for you to lead these people, the Israelites, across the Jordan River into the land I am giving them. I promise you what I promised Moses. Wherever you set foot, you will be on land that I have given you. From the Negev wilderness in the south to the Lebanon mountains in the north, from the Euphrates River in the east to the Mediterranean Sea in the west, including all the land of the Hittites, no one will be able to stand against you as long as you live, for I will be with you just as I was with Moses. I will not fail you or abandon you. And I thought, like, Joshua got it good. God gave him a promise, he gave him an assignment. Is and I think about like I gotta sit in prayer, I gotta fast just to ask God, like, what do you want me to do? And that thinking of that, it just shows how much, when God speaks to you, you listen and you respond. And it's always been a setup for Joshua because even as growing up, he took a liking to Moses, and that's why he was under him. And so that just kind of connects it because the death of Moses didn't stop the promise that God had. And I think a lot of the times when we are, expecting something or God promises something, it can be really easy to when maybe, we have gotten a vision for a business or a house or a ministry or whatever it is, and we are obviously choosing or understanding that our job is going to bring that and it's going to sustain it. And when it ends, we can often look at it as the promise ends too. But our promises are not connected to what is on the outside, and we'll get into that about a little bit later. The Lord says, starting in verse 6, it says, "Be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors. I swore to their ancestors I would give them. Be strong and courageous for the second time. Be careful to obey all the instructions Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything you do. Study this book of instructions continually. Meditate on it day and night so you will be sure to obey everything written in it. Only then will you prosper and be successful in all you do. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." So again, the Lord is giving Joshua an assignment, a promise, and then instructions. He got it good because I be wondering, I be sitting, and I don't ever like to. I don't know. I don't do too much because always want to be sure that is this God or is it not? Yeah. So Joshua chose to be obedient to the calling. He chose to be obedient to the promise. He commanded the people that God was over. He had placed under him, and yeah, they was ready to go. So we're going to the second chapter of Joshua, starting at the first verse. Can you read to 11, please? Second second chapter, first verse. Oh, okay, it's cool. Um,
1 second. Oh,
sure.
there we are. Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp at Acacia Grove. He instructed them, "Scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho." So the 2 men set out and came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there that night. But someone told the king of Jericho, "Some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land." So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, "Bring out the men who have come to your house, for they have come here to spy out the whole land." Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, "Yes, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. They left the town at dusk as the gates were about to close. I do not know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them." Actually, verse 6, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath bundles of flax she had laid out. So the king's men went looking for the spies along the road leading to the shadow crossings of the Jordan River. And as soon as the king's men had left, the gate of Jericho was shut. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went on the roof to talk with them. I know the Lord has given you this land, she told them. We are all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror. For we have heard how the Lord made a dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the two Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below.
Thank you. So, many people, I was thinking about it like, he had the right ones. Joshua sent the right people to do that because a lot of us wouldn't have made it out of that situation. They were on assignment, and it said that someone told the king that they were there. So Rahab wasn't the only person that they had spoken to. They obviously had encounters with other people, and a lot of people would have, looked past the prostitute and said, I'm going to stay with the people who don't look like sin because they know my God. It said they knew who they were. They knew they were God's people. So it's going to look bad on me if I'm over here spending the night with a prostitute. Sometimes we can miss our blessing and our covering because of what it is packaged in. Another thing that would have probably hindered a lot of people from receiving the message or receiving the blessing or the covering is because sometimes we get into these situations and instead of continuing our assignment, we conform. Conforming to in this situation would have looked like maybe I'm staying an extra couple of days. I done hit the jackpot. She know who I am. She know my God, and she cool with it. And I got an extra $20 in my pocket, so I'm straight for the night. A lot of us wouldn't have been able to continue our assignment because of the situation that we are in. God puts us in these places not to conform, but to show who He is. And I think it's so dope because it said that they knew who his God was. They knew that God had given them the land. She knew that. She knew the same thing that the people who told the king that they were there. But the only difference is Rahab's fear was met with reverence and theirs was met with resistance. When we have a fear of God that is healthy and revering, because that is what we do, it is met with surrenderance. And it is met with, okay, it is yours, whatever to push further, y'all. I have been praying this prayer for a good 4 or 5 months. It's God, whatever you do, whatever you have for me, do it. Whatever you are choosing to do in my life, I surrender it to you. And today is an example of those uncomfortable situations that it can get us in, but it is honestly such a blessing because, we don't know who we're doing it from. And a mistake that we make is thinking that what we have going on or what God is going to do for us or through us or the promise that He has for us is only for us. And because of this, Rahab didn't only keep them and cover them for the night. Her family was also saved. And if we know anything about the bloodline of Rahab, she was the mother of Boaz, who kept Ruth. And we have to stop thinking that it is about us, because it is not. It's not. It has so much more to do than just, personal gain. God didn't send them to Rahab. He didn't summon Rahab to protect His people just so that her and her family could live on once they came, which we'll get into later. It is time for us to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So the ones that were sent to spy or to check out the land, of course, made it back safely. They were all ready. They gave their reports, and they were ready to go. Starting in the next chapter of Joshua, chapter 3, it says, early the next morning, Joshua and all the Israelites left Acacia Grove and arrived at the banks of the Jordan River, where they camped before crossing. 3 days later, the Israelite officers went through the camp, giving these instructions to the people. When you see the Levitical priests carrying the Ark of Covenant of the Lord your God, move out of your positions and follow them. So the Levitical priests were carrying this box called the Ark of the Covenant, and it was so special to the Israelites because it was kind of just it's kind of signified the Lord's presence with them. And when I read this, I was like, okay, when you move, I move. When the Spirit of God moves, you follow. It says, since you have never traveled this way before, they will guide you. And this is why it is so important for us to choose the right leadership. And I'm so thankful. And I think about it all the time that as I've grown, especially in this church, I have people that I can look up to where maybe when my blinders are on a little bit too much, I can look for others for leadership. It says, stay about a half mile behind them. Keep a clear distance between you and the ark. Make sure you don't come any closer. Then Joshua told the people, purify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do great wonders among you. And oftentimes we want the wonders but don't want the purification. We expect God to do these things, and he will, but we don't want to do what he told us to do at first. We don't want to play our part. And the thing about God is he's going to be God. He has no other choice but to be who he has always been, and to be good, and to be a God of blessings and covering and restoration. He's going to be that. But the piece of the pie, the size of the piece that we get of God depends on our ability to fall into surrenderance to the sanctification. He said, today you will know that the living God is among you. He will surely drive out the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites, all the ites, and got nothing on you. Ahead, look at the Ark of the Covenant, which belongs to the Lord of the whole earth. Will lead you across the Jordan River. Joshua knew that, yes, I am over these people. Yes, these are my people. He said, look at the Ark of the Covenant. That will lead you across. We need to know who to give credit to. We cannot put our credit into, you good at this. Yeah, you can do hair, you can do nails, whatever it is. But you got to understand that those clients are coming from God. Yes, your business is beautiful. It was great. Actually, God gave you the idea, but essentially you have to understand that it is being funded by God, not your job, not the income from your clients, not just how cute you are, how well you do it. We have to understand that if we are not crediting God for what we have, it is so much easier for him to take it away. It says, now choose 12 men from the tribes of, and this is verse 10, starting in 10. It says, now choose 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe. The priests will carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth. As soon as their feet touch the water, the flow of the water will be cut off upstream, and the river will stand up like a wall. So the people left their camp to cross the Jordan, and the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. It was harvest season, and the Jordan was overflowing at its banks. But as soon as the feet of the priests who were carrying the ark touched the water at the river's edge, the water above that point began backing up a great distance away at a town called Adam, which was near Zarethan. And the water below that point flowed into the Dead Sea until the riverbed was dry. Then all the people crossed over near the town of Jericho. So this is the second time. It says they waited until the whole nation of Israel had crossed the Jordan on dry ground. So this is the second time that God has made, it might be more, because everything God did ain't in the Bible. But this is the second time that we know of that God has made dry ground to carry his people into promise. And I was thinking, imagine if the priests who were carrying the covenant, who were carrying God's promise in his presence, were too scared to step into the water. They were too scared because the water didn't stop flowing just because they saw it. And it didn't stop flowing just because they had knowledge of it. And it knew the water had to obey. The water has to obey. It knew that when the time came, it had to step back, but it didn't stop until they stepped into it. And a lot of us are missing our blessings. It's harvest season. A lot of us are missing our blessings because the very thing that looks to be a hindrance that God already said has to move when we step into it is a little bit too scary for us. And it takes us back to the point when the Israelites were summoned to the rainforest because they saw what was ahead of them, but didn't have faith that the God that gave them the vision and that gave them the land will bring them through it. It's harvest season. How are you stepping into it? A lot of us are going to miss it, and I'm so sad about it. You don't miss the harvest because of the conditions you're going to walk into it in. The water will move for you. The water will move for you. They walk through it. They're approaching Jericho. Remember, Jericho, this is where Rahab was, and they had to protect her. Starting in the first verse of chapter 6, it says, "Now the gates of Jericho were tightly shut because the people were afraid of the Israelites," which we already knew. They're hearing all of these wonderful things about how God is moving, and they knew that the land was already promised, so they were afraid. No one was allowed to go out or in, but the Lord said to Joshua, "I have given you Jericho, its king, and all its warriors. You and your fighting men should march around the town for a day, once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. On the 7th day, you are to march around the town 7 times with the priests blowing the horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast on the ram's horn, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of the town will collapse and the people will charge straight into town." They followed these instructions carefully. It says, in verse 18, "Don't take any of the things set apart for destruction, or yourselves will be completely destroyed, and you will bring trouble on the camp of Israel. Everything made from silver, gold, bronze, or iron is sacred to the Lord and must be brought into treasury." So the walls fall down once again because God said it. But it says in I think this is verse 7:1, maybe. It says but Israel violated the instructions about the things set apart from the Lord. A man named Achan had stolen some of the dedicated things. So the Lord was very mad, very angry with the Israelites. And I was thinking, like, Lord, why are you mad at all of them just because he want to be a thief? But you have to understand, you got to watch who's around you. Watch who you're surrounding yourself with. The promise that God had was still good, but his favor temporarily was lifted from them because somebody was out of order. So it says, Achan, who was the son of Carmi, a descendant of Zimri, son of Zerah, and tribe of Judah, Joshua sent some of the men from Jericho to spy out the town of Ai. So they're looking at another land. He done made it with the stolen goods. It says, east of Bethel near Bethaven. When they returned, they told Joshua, "There's no need for us all to go up there. It won't take more than 2,000 or 3,000 men to attack Ai. Since there are so few of them, don't make all of our people go up there and struggle." So they were feeling themselves at this point. They're like, "We got this." They had already, seen a couple of victories. God already did that for them. They're feeling themselves, and I love this part so bad because it's just a little funny to me. It says, so approximately 3,000 warriors were sent, but they were soundly defeated. The men of Ai chased the Israelites from the town gate as far as the quarries, and they killed about 36 who were retreating down the slope, for the Israelites were paralyzed with fear at this turn of events, and their courage melted away. But they were so confident before. I love that it says they were warriors. So they had the right idea, but they walked into it in the wrong posture. They walked into it with the favor of God has left them. So then Joshua cried out after their defeat. He cried out, "O sovereign Lord, why did you bring us across the Jordan River? If you are going to let the Amorites kill us, if only we had been content to stay on the other side." As soon as the hardships came, Joshua forgot all about the promise that God had given them, not knowing, asking God what he did wrong, not knowing that it was his men that were out of order. Joshua's first resort was to question the promise instead of the instructions. God gave him very specific instructions. Again, he is a lucky man because I be struggling. But he said, we cannot get comfortable along the way. They only sent 3,000 of their men. We can't get comfortable along the way to where we become blind to the state that we are in. And I think it's so easy to become, to put ourselves on autopilot when it comes to doing God's work, day in, day out, just doing what we're called to do. But sometimes we need that moment to have a heart check to understand, where your heart is, and am I really in obedience, or am I just going through the motions? But the Lord said to Joshua, "Get up." Verse 10, "Get up. Why are you lying on your face like this? Israel has sinned and broken my covenant. They have stolen some of the things that I commanded must be set apart for me. And they have not only stolen them, but have lied about it and have hidden it among their own belongings. This is why the Israelites are running from their enemies in defeat." Oh, I love that it says that Jesus, sorry, y'all. When they were running from them in defeat because they still had things among them that God had called them out of. And sometimes we are still walking in things that we're never intended to carry. We're walking with things, and we might be walking into, the promise of God, and we might be walking into the purpose of God. But if we have things among us that God has forbidden, or that He has said, "This is for me," or that are sacred, we will never reach. We are essentially tainting the promise of God. It says, for now, Israel itself has been set apart for destruction. And I love that it says "for now," because that means that there is still hope. It says, "I will not remain with you any longer unless you destroy the things among you that were set apart for destruction. Get up, command the people to purify themselves in preparation for tomorrow. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Hidden among you, O Lord, O Israel, are things set apart for the Lord. You will never defeat your enemies until you remove these things from among you." That was kind of like, I kind of got convicted of that, because I'm like, dang, what do I have among me that is like hindering me from my blessings or from the promise? So, of course, Joshua commands the people. He tells y'all, we got to handle some stuff tomorrow. And I love how specific God was about showing him who it was. It says, early the next morning, this is 7, starting in 16. Early the next morning, Joshua brought the tribes of Israel before the Lord, and the tribe of Judah was singled out. The clans of Judah came forth, and the clan of Zerah was singled out. The families of Zerah came out, and the family of Zimri was singled out. Every member of Zimri's family was brought forward, person by person, and Achan was singled out. Then Joshua said to Achan, "My son, give glory to God, the God of Israel, by telling the truth. Make your confession and tell me what you have done. Don't hide it from me." And he replied, "It is true, I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel. Among the plunder I saw a beautiful robe from Babylon, 200 silver coins, and a bar of gold weighing more than a pound. I wanted them so much that I took them. They are hidden in the ground beneath my tent with the silver buried deeper than the rest." And I was wondering why he got the silver a little bit deeper. And I was just kind of thought about, an insurance policy. If someone were to go and find, what was hidden at the surface level, they wouldn't, or at least I wouldn't think to dig a little bit deeper and find out there's a little bit, a little bit extra. So sometimes when we want God to deliver us for some things. We want God to give us things. We want healing, but we keep just a little bit for ourselves. I don't want to keep having sex out of wedlock. I don't want to keep doing that. So I'm going to stop, but I'm going to make sure I keep in touch with them just in case. Just in case. Or we don't want to surrender everything. And it said that he couldn't wait. It says, I wanted it so much that I took them. Sometimes we don't want to wait for God to bless us, so we bless ourselves. And then get mad at God because he did. He might have promised this man, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to take care of your family. Just hold on a second. But we don't want to wait for him to bless us, or we are so blinded by our own thoughts and ideas that we begin to bless ourselves and confuse it for God's blessings, then want to get mad at God because things are falling apart. But the thing that we have blessed ourselves with is actually cursing his promise. So they took the things from the tent and brought them to Joshua and all the Israelites. Then they laid them on the ground in the presence of the Lord. I love James 5:16 because it says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. That is so important to lay. They laid it in front of his people. And it's really sad actually that they had to wait until, it was forced to do it, y'all. We have fellowship with one another because God needs us to have that. Don't ever get to the point where you have to be called out and put in front of people. God told them to purify themselves once again. And because of that, it says, why have you brought trouble on us? The Lord will bring trouble on you. And they stoned his family and burned their bodies. And I was kind of taken back from this. I'm like, dang, God, you didn't have to do that to all of them. Only one of them was stealing. But you have to understand that they just spent 40 years in the wilderness. God still had an assignment. He still had a promise for them. He was not playing games. And it is okay. God will use us in our sin, even though he does not want us to be there. Our sin does not disqualify us for what God has for us. But at a certain point, we have to grow and to be mature enough to understand that this cannot come with me. And so I have to he had to do it. He didn't want, God loves us so much, and he didn't want to do that to his people. But some things just cannot come where God is taking you. Then the Lord said to Joshua in chapter 8, verse 1, do not be afraid or discouraged. Take all of your fighting men and attack Ai, for I have given you the king of Ai, his people, his town, and the land. You will destroy them as you destroyed Jericho and its king. But this time, you may keep the plunder and livestock for yourselves. Set an ambush to the town. He said, this time use everything that I've given you. A lot of the times we fall in defeat to things because we are not using all of our tools. We'll pray about it, maybe go on a little one-day fast. We're not telling anybody what we're battling with. We're not avoiding the things that could trigger this desire in our lives. We're not really putting an actual effort to destroy these things. We say, I'm going to pray a little bit and wonder why it's not moving or why it's not as effective as it should be. And think that there's something wrong with your prayer or there's something wrong with the word of God or maybe you didn't do it right when really we are not using all of our tools. He said, this time keep everything. This time keep everything. So we just saw this man get burned. His family was stoned and burned because he couldn't wait just one more battle and stay in obedience just one more time before God did what he had already intended to do. We get tired of doing right and waiting on God to move. So we try to make things happen for ourselves, not knowing that our blessing is on the other side of the obedience. If you have to, I have learned to kind of live by, if you have to do anything that is unsettling, anything that does not look like God to get it, then it's not from God. It's not from God. I think about John 15:4. It says, remain in me and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine. You cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. And when I read the word, I like to, you can get a general idea of what words mean, but I like to just see what the dictionary says, just to get a better understanding. And to remain, it means to stay in the same place or to continue unchanged. And a lot of the times, we think that we are remaining just because we do it over and over again. We can go to church on Sunday and give a praise, and we'll be in church on Sunday, be in the presence of God on Sunday, but then in our feelings on Monday, and that causes us to act a fool, and thinking that just because I go back to church on Sunday, or even I go back to church before, I'm going to go back on Wednesday, that we have been in his presence, when really we're not. Just because we go back to God does not mean that we are doing his work. I think about, again, when Achan, he took those goods, but he went back to fight again the next battle, even though he was in sin. So just because you're showing up over and over and over again to do what God has called you to do, and just because you feel like you're progressing the promise does not mean that you are doing it correctly. It does not mean that you are in the will of God just because you're pushing forth his promise. We have to get to the point where we are able to surrender to God in a way that is uncomfortable. We have to submit to God in a way that is uncomfortable. We have to look at things from God's eyes. They had just spent 40 years wandering around the wilderness because of their faithlessness, because of their lack of faith. And Joshua was a lucky one. He knew that his faith kept him from dying off. It kept him from suffering a death that was meant for the faithlessness. But as soon as the promise as soon as the situation didn't look like the promise, he resorted right back to, dang, why, God, why are you doing this to me? Not understanding that it is him. I'll say all the time that, God is a gentleman. My God is a gentleman. He is not going to push us beyond. He's not going to make us do anything. And of course, he gives us he shows up and he presents himself to us all the time. But it's up to us to take that step forward. And he waits on us. He waits on us, which is, again, just love it. God is, I just love it. God, he waits on us, and he will wait for us to be ready. But we have to understand that once we are ready, backsliding is not a possibility. We can't do that. And of course, sometimes it's okay to walk. It's okay to walk and walk slow if we got to and stand in one spot, but we cannot go back to places that God has already called us out of. We cannot spend another 40, they couldn't spend another 40 years in the wilderness. God had promised his people something. He had a promise for them. He had told them that what I have is good. And again, at the beginning of just preparing for all this, everybody was telling, make it personal. How can you relate to this? And I think that if there's anything that God has shown me throughout my walk with him, it's been about 2 years since I chose him, and maybe about a little over a year since I decided to just really go 100% for him. And if there's anything that I've learned throughout this process, it would be that God he has plans for every single one of us. And even in our old age, even in our sin, even in our feelings of insignificance, he has a plan for every single one of us. And it's always there and it's always good, but it can only go as far as we allow it to. So I just encourage you guys today to understand that the promise of God is still good, and sometimes we are the Israelites. Sometimes we are a kin. Sometimes we do things to hinder our blessings, and that's okay. God, we are lucky to live in a time where we're not getting stoned just for doing the things, but he will restore. And I love that Joshua fell to the calling of his life. He got straight in line when Moses passed away. And sometimes that's all that God is waiting for, is for us to get in line and line up. That's all I got for y'all today. I thought y'all didn't really have I was good. Thank you.
We'll give her one more, just one more. One more, just one. I'm gonna have her prayer shot and closes out here. But y'all know how we are. We cannot, for 1 second, close out our service without giving the opportunity. This is the part of service where I take it very seriously. It's a very serious thing. Never in your life never said, I believe. Like, I accept that. That's truth for me. I believe in him. I understand I'm a sinner. I'm dirty. I don't do right. Probably never will, but I need a God that did. I need a sacrificial lamb. And then some of y'all, this sermon was for you. God said, I'm trying to take you into new places in your life. Now, I'm giving you specific instructions, and you have not obeyed the instruction. And you wonder why it's defeat when he promised you victory, but you didn't follow the instruction. The woman of God said, you better watch who around you in this season. Y'all been hearing me say that? Because God said, well, I'm taking you, I'm doing supernatural. And some people around you ain't gonna do right. She said, some of y'all do not want to do another 40 years in the wilderness. God had been through that season of your life. He said, I need you to line up. Because some of us already know him to be our Lord and Savior. We just haven't obeyed. And I wonder if you need prayer. And I'm going to have actually a couple of you guys, if we need prayer, if you can, if you're not available, can, for prayer. And I'm going to let the woman of God just pray us out. But if you've never said, hey man, I want to try Jesus, I'm not sitting here no more and just being scared of it. I just gotta make it. I gotta do this. This is the time for that. I want to try this Jesus thing out. I want to try this loving Savior guy out. I done tried everything else. But I need to be sure. I need to be sure that I know if I was to die, I'm gonna open my eyes and be with the Lord. And I can guarantee you that today. I can guarantee you that today. Ain't another God guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that today. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians to be absent from the body, to be present with the Lord. So if you put out of here on Blue Ridge and you get smacked by a bus, you can lay there about to go like, here I come. And you're gonna close your eyes and open your eyes in the presence of God. I can guarantee you that. It's by belief that your salvation is sealed until the day of redemption. And some of y'all, I just want to get repentant. I already know Jesus. I've been believing him all my life. I just want to say I'm sorry. And I need a freshness. I need prayer. I just need a revival in my spirit. I just need a